Alright, if you've come from my previous video, I'll put a link up in one of the cards up here. Basically we had our Raspberry Pi connecting to the network with its IP address set automatically through the router and whatnot. So because we're aiming for remote access here, remote meaning not right next to me but across town or the other side of the country or whatever, I really want to get a fixed IP address locked in there so that you know, we can be sure that it's going to be what we say it is. So let's get on to that. So let's bring up PuTTY. Let's log into our Raspberry Pi. Where are you? There you are. Again, go to my previous video and it'll get you to this point. So let's log in. And password. Alright, so we're in. I'm just going to slam that off to the left. And let's go and get some information from the Raspberry Pi website, the official website. Okay, now we're after static IP address Raspberry. That's our information there. You know, have a good read of that. There's some valuable info in there. I've kind of skimmed over that earlier. So what we want to do is, it's telling us to configure this file here. So what we need to do, I can see immediately that that's in a like a super user area of the operating system, and that means we need to start things off with sudo. Yes, I'm trying to change to saying sudo instead of sudo. So we need to start sudo, and we're going to use a text editor called nano, and let's just get a copy of that. Copy. Now you can't just paste like normally in here, you've got to push control, right click, and then you'll get the menu. Alright, hit enter. That's great, we've got what we want there. Now the Raspberry Pi straight out of the shop will come with Wi-Fi and an Ethernet socket. Now for one reason or another you might decide to go and plug in a different Ethernet adapter and even a different Wi-Fi adapter or dongle in the USB port or whatever. And if you want to utilize those, well, if you come back to this page over here, we need to punch in this link. So let's just do that for the sake of understanding here. So I'm not going to drop out of this text file here. Let's just open up another PuTTY connection, which you can do, multiple connections to the same computer, no problem. So let's just do that. Login as Pi, password. Alright, so we're in the second time. Now let's whack in that command there, IP link, and we'll get a list of our adapters. So there they are. So the ones of interest here for me is that one, which is the cabled Ethernet adapter, and this one, Wi-Fi. So that's how you will identify your adapter that you're interested in. So what it's telling us is to get this block of text basically and drop that into our text file here. So let's do that. Now, because I've got Wi-Fi and Ethernet, and I could want to go either way, I'll just put that block of text there twice. So let's do that again. So that way I can set up a static IP address for when it's on a cable connection or a Wi-Fi connection. So ETH0, that's our cable connection. So we can put a comment in there. And I recommend comments, man. Might be 5 years before you visit this again, and you'll be able to look at this and see exactly what you did. So so let's put a comment in there. Cable Ethernet fixed IP setup. And let's do the same down here for the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi fixed IP setup. Alright. So that first line, that's fine for Ethernet. Now you'll have to use your Nana here and set things to suit your situation. So I'm wanting an IP address of 192.168.1. What's happened there? Oh, I don't know what's happened there. .1.90, and my router, let's just have a quick look at that. Double check. Is that, so that's your router IP address there, 192.168.1. Again, do what suits you. It's not recognising my numbered keypad. Okay. 168.1.254. Alright, so that's our router IP address. And then these are our DNS servers. So we need to populate that. Now, the first one here, I'll just use the same address as your router. So in your router, generally there's a DNS address set up in there. By using your IP address for the router, it will actually grab that particular setting that's in your router and actually use that. If that falls over for whatever reason, it will then fall into this DNS server configured here. Now I do know that 8.8.8.8, I'm pretty sure are Google servers, so we'll just leave that as is. So that's it, that's done. If we plug in an Ethernet cable to our Pi, this will be our address here. Can I highlight that? No. 192.168.1.90. Now for our Wi-Fi, we need to change that to, plane going overhead, sorry, WLAN 0. Let's have a quick gander at that. Yeah. And basically do the same thing, 192.168.1.90. Now again, you could want a different IP address for your Wi-Fi if you're using Wi-Fi, and another one for your cabled connection. For me, I just want the same. we make that the same address as our router, and same deal here, and that's it, that's done. Let's just have a double check. That looks pretty good to me. So basically now you just write that, Control O, punch enter, Control X, and we're done. Reboot the computer by going sudo shutdown -R for reboot, and do it now. And we've lost connection on both of those, which is exactly what I expect. Alright, let's fire up Putty again. Where are you? Here you are. Okay. And that's it. So we've now got a fixed IP address configured. I do suggest that if you're following along here and you've set different IP addresses for Wi-Fi and cable or whatever, then put it to the test. You know, disconnect your Wi-Fi, take it somewhere, plug it into your router, and see if it does what I am saying it should do, and peace of mind, you know. So that's it there, and we'll get on to the next scene shortly. We'll see you then. It's another day. Let's try and make some progress here and try and start controlling our desktop. The Raspberry Pi operating system from the official Raspberry Pi website. We have installed the desktop version, but as you know, if you've been following along, we've been accessing this entirely through the network with no monitor or keyboard and whatnot. Alright, so that desktop actually has some VNC, that's virtual network computing software on there, and that software is called Real VNC. Now I'm not going to talk too much about Real VNC except to say that it is pretty good. They offer a cloud connection service, which is great, but for commercial purposes you should be obtaining a license, which is going to cost you money, and so on. So we won't be taking that route here if that's what you've come for, but don't rush off. We've got something I think equally if not better, which we're going to start going through. Now the network software we're going to be installing is called Tiger VNC. Now I don't want to get too much into the ins and out of Tiger VNC right now. I'll do that in the beginning of this video, in the intro, so if you want to see that, go and see the intro. I haven't actually recorded an intro yet, I've not shot that, so but I will do that. But basically we'll be installing two servers, the Tiger VNC Standalone Server and the Tiger VNC Scraping Server. Now again, I don't want to get too much in discussion there because it is a bit long-winded, but it also is important. Okay, so what we're going to do is start up Putty. Now I've created a profile in Putty just to speed things up, and not only that, but primarily to blow up our terminal so that you can read it without me having to edit it and zoom in and out and whatnot. So I'll be using that from now on. Okay, I'm going to log into the Pi computer and into the password. Alright, now as I said, the Raspberry Pi operating system that we've installed, the desktop version, already has virtual networking computer software in there called Real VNC, and we're going to remove that. Now I just need to pull up some notes that I've been compiling over time. I've been doing my best to break down all the complexities of this and put it out there for you guys and myself. I'm likely to forget this next week probably. Anyway, so yeah, Real VNC is there, so we need to remove that, and we're going to do that by going sudo apt get remove Real VNC server. Now that should get rid of that. Now I would like to acknowledge here that I don't think nowadays we need to have this -get, but you know, I'm just so accustomed to that now. So that we should be able to hit enter there and get rid of that. You want to continue? Yes. Hopefully that won't take too long. In case you're interested, this wallpaper I've got here is actually the backyard of our family homestead where I used to live as a child. Homestead is still in the family, and it's relatively recent picture. Okay, so that Real VNC has been removed. Now we're going to install the standalone variation of Tiger VNC, so let's do that. Sudo apt get install Tiger VNC. Let's get rid of that. Standalone server. Okay, so that should install that. Again, go to my intro if you're wanting to know what the standalone server is. Okay, so that's done, and also we're going to install the Tiger VNC scraping server, so let's do that. Tiger VNC need to do something about this keyboard and elevate it and angle it and whatnot. It just doesn't, it's not quite ergonomic enough. Tiger VNC scraping server. We've got sound, test. Okay. So our scraping server is now installed. Now, the instructions for, most of the instructions I've found online regarding installing Tiger VNC and getting it running, they take a different sort of approach to what I'm about to go through. Stick with me. Let's do a directory and see where I'm at. Yeah, okay. So Tiger VNC is, we've only installed it, we haven't actually launched it. Once we do launch it, it will create a hidden folder. But I'm gonna get a jump on that, and I'm gonna create that myself. I'm just gonna make sure that it's actually not there. So let's go cd dot vnc. So vnc is the name of the folder. The dot will indicate that it's hidden, and I'm getting an error there which indicates it's not there. So I just want to establish it's actually not there before I go ahead and make one. Now, so we need to make that directory. Now, let's hope I can remember mkdir, or was it mkdir? Let's try that. Dot vnc. No. dir. Alright, so that's that made. Now let's just prove that it's actually there. If I go directory, we can't see it because, as I said, it's hidden, so we should be able to go into there now. .vnc, and there we go. So we've proven that it's now there but hidden. Let's just take a step back into our folder structure. Make sure we're there, and let's progress to the next bit. Right, we're now going to make passwords for 2 people for the purpose of this video. These 2 people's names are going to be Sam and Mary. So let's do that now. Oop. I've just had to take a phone call. I've re-logged into our Pi. We're at exactly the same place we left off. So we do that. Like this. You type in vnc passwd. Make sure you're in this particular folder location. Squiggly, which is next to the number 1 button on my keypad, just to the left. Slash dot vnc slash. Now we're going to give this a file name for the password. You can call this whatever you want. For the purpose here, we're going to call this standalone password for Sam. Standalone password for Sam. Okay. I'm going to give Sam a password, and that password is going to be Samson. Now I've spelled Samson with a P in there. Let's verify that. View only password is exactly that. I'm going to say no to that, since we want to control the desktop. We're not interested in spying on anyone here. Okay, so we've got a password, standalone password for Sam, and we're also going to create a scraping server password for Sam, so let's do that also. And we'll do that same deal. vnc passwd, little squiggly thing. I don't know what you call that squiggly thing. Somebody knows. Please put it in the comments. Slash dot vnc slash, now scraping password for Sam. Okay. We need a password for that. We'll just say password is Samson. SC. SC for scraping. SC. Okay, Samson SC. Let's verify that. Like a view only password, no. Right, so we now got 2 passwords for Sam. Do the same for Mary. ENCPASWD squiggly things /dot VNC / standalone password for Mary. Okay, and we'll give Mary a password of lamb. Here's in Mary had a little lamb, so let's enter that. I need more characters. Let's say the password is little lamb. Okay, little lamb. Would you like a view only password? No. Okay, now we're also going to create a scraping server password for her. Same deal, VNC PASSWD squiggly thing /dot VNC / scraping password for Mary. Okay, let's give her a password for that, so we'll call it little lamb SC for scraping, and again review any password, no. Alright, so Sam and Mary have 2 passwords. Let's do a directory. Let's just check all our work and cd into the hidden directory. Let's do a directory in there. Okay, so there's our passwords for Sam and for Mary. Okay, now we're getting close to the exciting bit. And that is to try and start the server and then log in. Okay, so let's try and do that. So let's start up the server. VNC server. Okay, now we need to use a switch here, capital P, password, capital F, file, the little squiggly /dot VNC / now we need to enter the password file, so let's do Sam's password file, which is, we'll use the standalone one for our test. Standalone password for Sam. Okay, stretch this out a little bit. Now what we've got to do here is go local host and actually there's got to be a hyphen before that. Localhost no. Now if we don't put localhost no, then we will not be able to access the server from another computer, only the server on the exact same computer. And for our tests, if you're familiar with VNC, usually the port number is sort of, 5900. Now the last 2 numbers is usually the display number. So we can't actually put 5900. What we've got to put is 10. Example. So our port will actually be 5910. If we want 5901, we'd have to just put 1. But we're going to go off the norm here because I think that gives us a more sort of a robust test. Okay, now that should, with a bit of luck, start our server. Fingers crossed. Let's punch that through. It's doing something. Didn't complain, so we should be able to do a list or some sort of status or something. All my notes here, so much of it. No, I'm pretty sure it's VNC server -list. Cool. Now you can see there, that's our display, which is 10, and our port 5910, because that 10 reflects the display, and our process ID. Now we actually should be able to log into this for the very first time. Let's do that. Okay, we need a viewer. Now I'm running Linux here. You could do this from Windows or any machine with most of the viewers will work. Real VNC has a viewer. I've already got Tiger VNC, the viewer, installed on my Linux box. I'm not going to go through the installation of that. So let's fire up our VNC viewer. Here it is, Tiger VNC viewer. Make sure our IP address is correct, which is 90. Yeah, 192.168.1.90, and our port number. And let's do it. Look at that. Got a red highlight there, which tells me the Raspberry Pi is actually responding now. So now we need our password for the standalone server. So let's enter that. Samson with a P. Bingo. Now often these things are, when you first fire them up, they're kind of a little laggy the very first time, but after that, because of techniques of cache and memory and whatnot, things do improve. So there we have it, and we can now use the desktop remotely. Now let's have a little gander in here with all the stuff that we've been doing through PuTTY. Okay, so there's our Pi directory there. There's our hidden folder there that we've created through PuTTY. And there's all our passwords that we've set up for Sam and Mary. And the fact that it's got these log data and PID data in here tells me that our VNC server is actually looking in there and analysing stuff and writing stuff, and so that's all a good sign. So I'm very happy with that. Now, because this is the very first time logging into this via the desktop, I am quite keen to see if we can copy and paste in there. According to this window, we should be able to do that. So I'm just going to create quickly here a quick test file, text file. Test, copy and paste .txt. Okay, let's open that. I'm going to put some text in here. Hello. Now we're in our remote desktop. Let's create a file here. New file. Okay, so now we've got our text file there. Let's open that. And let's try and copy and paste between these two. Copy, paste. Beautiful. So that's it, guys. Now let me show you something that might excite you. Let's do that again. Have I still got putty open? Yeah. So let's keep that open. And let's start up a second server. And so we'll do that with VNC server. We've got to stipulate our password file. And it's going to be this little squiggly /.vnc slash now password file for Mary, standalone password for Mary. Now remember, we've got to put this localhost stuff in here. If you don't do that, it's just not going to work. And we'll make that 20. So the display will be 20, giving the port number of 5920. Now I've got to put our colon before that. Alright. So that's starting up, and it's now started. Now what we can do is do that list again there. So there you have it. Now we've got two servers running, display 10 and display 20. So let's try and log in to our second one. Let's just put 20 on the end of that. Connect. Okay, we've got a nice red thingy there, which is all good. And our password, what was that? Little lamb. And there you go. Now, as you can see, we are logged into there twice. Mary has logged in and Sam has logged in. Now, if you look at the two desktop screens, they're looking quite independent. Now let's log out of Sam's connection here. Now let's add something to the desktop of Mary's connection, maybe a calculator. Okay, now if I log out of Mary's account, so now we're not logged into any of them at all. Sam comes along and logs in, and he enters his connection criteria, and he enters his password. Okay, now if we do the same for Mary, so what you're noticing here is the uniqueness of the standalone server. So what you've got is two different people able to log into the exact same computer and do work, log in and out, come back the next day or the next week. As long as that computer hasn't been turned off and on, the desktop will look just like they left it. And so if Mary logs in, Mary will not be able to sort of interfere with what Sam's been doing. Sam may have unfinished work on his desktop. So that's the standalone server. And if you were to plug, I need to mention this, if you were to plug a display into that Raspberry Pi and a keyboard and a mouse, you'll see the desktop, but you won't see any of this, what's going on. So these people can actually log into these computers sort of stealthy, you know. They can be doing things, and if a person were operating that computer in person at the keyboard and whatnot, they wouldn't see what they're doing unless they put something in front of their face, you know, like a folder or files on the desktop. Then they'll see that. But generally, it's all an independent experience, and it does have its place, and so too does the scraping server. You know, the scraping server is the one where what you do can be seen on the actual screen that's connected to the Pi. So you can actually use that to assist somebody in how to use their computer or whatever. So that's the scraping server. I haven't started the scraping server yet. I suppose I could do that now. Shall we do that now? Yeah, we might as well. We're on a roll now. Let's just move that to there for now. So let's start up a scraping server. Now the scraping server, I have noticed when I start the scraping server in the PuTTY terminal, it does not actually exit out of that process. So I'm not really wanting to mess this PuTTY connection up. So what I'm going to do instead is open up another PuTTY connection. So it's a second PuTTY connection into the same computer, and the password is, man, so many passwords. Alright, so we're in there again. Let's do a directory. Just curious where I was. Okay, now let's start up the scraping server. Let's bring this out a little bit. And we'll do that. I think I'm just going to copy and paste. I don't know if I can do that, copy and paste all this instead of me typing it out. I've got, as I say, I've got a whole bunch of notes that I've been compiling over the last recent days. I've got to push Control in here and then right click, paste from clipboard. So that's what we need, except we need to replace this password file, obviously, with the password file for Sam or Mary. So let's go with Mary. What was her password file? Hey, we can look in here now, can't we? Scraping password for Mary, there it is. So let's type that. And display, we'll put it on, what have we used so far? 10, 20, and so we'll make that 30. And so you can see that we're starting this a little differently. Excuse me, I'm just going to close the door. I've got a bit of noise out in the street. So do take note, the password switch here is all lowercase compared to the other method of starting, so look at that carefully, and I think we're good to go with that. Let's punch enter on that one. Unable to open display 30. I've got to say, I've actually never tested the scraping server on any other port number but 0. So let's do that. And actually, I'll probably recommend 0 since that's the normal port that most people would use for such a server. So just make that 0. It's actually what I've got in my notes. And it's punch enter through that. Okay, so we've got some feedback there, and just as I said, it is. I just wanted to, I just wanted to check that the camera's recording and audio was recording because we've done all this great work now. I really don't want to start recording it again, but it looks all good. Yeah, sorry. So as you can see, it's hanging in that PuTTY terminal, which is exactly why I opened up another terminal. So we should be able to log into that, into the scraping server. So let's bring up our Tiger VNC again. And let's change that to 5900 and connect. Oh, there's the pop-up. I thought I might have seen a certificate, but I can't seem to spot that. Oh well, let's carry on. Now the scraping server for, was it Mary, was it? No. Little Mary. Wow, I made a mess of that, didn't I? Let's log in to our Pi again through PuTTY. Start up the scraping server. That line there, have a good look at that. Alright, let's punch that through. Scraping server has begun, and Tiger Viewer. It will be our connection. Data, connect, and the scraping server does seem to take a little longer to connect up. And our password is Little Lamb SC. And there you have it. So this is our scraping server, and if we had a monitor plugged into the computer, we would actually see all this activity going on. Now I'm going to get the camera and just give you guys a look at this. Okay. So this is the screen that let's just unplug the cable. This is my computer screen that I've been working on. This is our login for the desktop. Got a calculator here, and this here is the Raspberry Pi. I'm working in the dark here. It's the Raspberry Pi, and I've actually got a display plugged into it. So, and there you go. So that's the scraping server. So I would call that a I would say that that's a success. Awesome. Now I'm just going to log out of that now. So here we are with some 3 months on now. What has happened is I did run into some issues with getting the service to automatically start while I could achieve it, it just, yeah, it was a little bit quirky, and I wasn't happy sharing that. Yeah, so what I've learned is there's actually another way to set up Tiger VNC, but you know, what I've done thus far is actually perfectly fine for myself, and in the interest of making some progress on my own projects, I'm just going to carry on and use startup scripts which can be manually initiated by myself by logging in via PuTTY, or by somebody at the other end. They can just click on the desktop script and start the server that way. So you know, if it's of use to me, then I'm sure it will be of use to others out there. So that's what we're going to do. And hey, you might be able to use your own knowledge and figure out how you could just start these up yourself. So, you know, I've put some effort into compiling all this, and so we might as well publish it and make it of use to people. So let's do that. We're going to log into the Raspberry Pi now, and we're going to start up PuTTY. Let's close my editing screen here. Let's log into our Raspberry Pi. Log in as Pi, and let's enter our password. Okay, we're in our Pi now. Let's do a directory. Let's move into the desktop directory. That's where we will put our scripts. Let's do a directory there again. So there's nothing there. So let's create our script now. Let's kick it off with sudo. And we use a text editor called Nano. And let's start up the script. So let's start up Scraping Server. So we're creating a text file here called Startup Scraping Server for SAM, and because it's a script, we need to end that with a .sh. Okay, so now we're in our text editor. Now I'm just going to grab the command that we've been entering all this time in the terminal. I'm just going to grab that off my notes here. There it is. So this is for the scraping server. So let's push Control, right click, and paste that into there. Now we need to define our password file here, which is going to be scraping password for SAM, and the display is 0. That's correct. Let's write that. Control O, press enter, Control X to quit. Let's do a directory now. So there's our script there. Okay, now we can't actually execute that yet because the script needs permissions for execution. So let's do that. I'm going to get another command here. I'm just going to copy this and I'll paste that in here. Okay, now I need to kick that off again with sudo chmod plus x, and let's put our startup script name here. Startup scraping server for SAM. Let's just look this over quickly. So that looks okay. That should give it permissions to execute. Let's punch that. no errors, that's good. Now we should be able to start the server now. So to run a script, we need to start off with a dot and a slash, and then we'll enter our script name. Startup Scraping Server for SAM. End it with a .sh. Oh, spelling error in there. Startup Scraping Server for SAM. Okay, that should run now. Push enter. That looks like it's started up, so now we should be able to fire up Tiger VNC Viewer, and this is our connection criteria here. It's all good. 5900 connect. Let's just wait for the pop-up. Here it is, and I hope I can get this password right. Samson, and because it's a scraping server, put SC. Great. And here's our desktop. We're remotely into the Raspberry Pi, and I'm looking at the physical screen over there, and the mouse is all moving. And here is our script to start the scraping server right here. So now we can actually use the desktop as opposed to the PuTTY terminal. So let's create another script, and I want a script for the standalone server. So let's do that. We can now use this. Now right click, new file, and let's go startup standalone server. Stand for SAM, and that was SH. Okay, there. Now again, this needs permissions to execute, so I'm just going to right click on there, go to properties, go to permissions, execute, and I'm just going to say anyone here. Alright, okay, right click, text editor. Yeah, I didn't put anything in there, duh. Alright, so let's do that. Let's put our command in here. I'm just going to copy again off my notes, paste that in there. Now, yeah, because this is a scraping server, we don't have copy and paste abilities. From one computer to the remote computer. That's alright. Let's just manually type all this in for now. VNC server switch capital P password file. Let's put the squiggle in there, /.vnc/ and then let's enter our password file, which is what is it? Let me just double check. Don't really want to get this wrong. Yeah. I'm looking at it on my standalone password for standalone password for SAM. Alright, and then we need to put another switch here, localhost no, and then our port is going to be sorry, our display is going to be 10. Okay, ENC, going to be double check password file, ENC standalone password. Okay, let's save that. Okay, now let's make sure this has still got permissions to execute. It has, so let's double click that and execute. Alright, again let's fire up Tiger ENC now, and our display was 10, so that needs to be 5910 for our port, and connect. We've got red there, which is a good sign. The server's responding, and it's a standalone server for Sam, so Samson. Great. Okay, well, I'm just going to go through my checklist here, and we're going to do a few extra things here. So I'm logged in to the desktop and the Raspberry Pi, you can see that here, and I'm also logged in on PuTTY, the same Raspberry Pi here, and we're just going to go through a couple of extra commands. So you've already seen we can list running servers with VNC server and the list switch. Okay, so this particular desktop is running on display 10, which we can see here. Now we can kill that by entering VNC server, use the kill switch, and colon, and then 10. So if I punch enter now, that will actually kill the server and the desktop will disappear. If we had many servers running for many individuals, we can kill the whole lot in one go simply by putting the colon and a star. So let's do that now. I'm just going to go with the star command and kill everything. We've only got one server running. Let's hit enter, and we should see the desktop disappear behind us. So there you go, and we can verify that by entering VNC server and then the list switch, and as you can see there's nothing showing there. Sometimes we might see something, but there'll be a little comment there saying that the server is stale. Yeah, now this is for the standalone server. I've not gotten into killing the scraping server and whatnot. I primarily will be using the standalone server anyway, so apologies there. Alright, next up, let's set up some sort of system so that we can copy data back and forth between our remote desktop and our local desktop. So let's do that right now. So as you know, I'm running Linux, and I like to use the file manager called Dolphin. So let's bring up Dolphin here. Now if you Dolphin, we can have this, we got this network icon over here which we can click, and we can browse our network here. Now if we double click this here, what we can do is remotely access the Pi through a secure shell. We click next, and we can give it a name. This name can be anything, so we can say blah blah, for example. Okay, and now our login is as if we are logging in through PuTTY. Same login. So Pi, and our server, that's the IP address 192.168.1.90. Be different for you probably. Port stays the same, standard 22. Now the folder the folder is the folder that we want to jump straight into the moment we access our network folder. So what we can do is go to our desktop and then just have a browse around, and what I like to do is just navigate to a folder of where I would like to jump straight into when I remotely access. So maybe downloads might be a good place, and if I get this path here and I just double click that and to take a copy of it, and then go back to, where are we? Back to here and finish this off, and then I can just right click here and paste that path. So when we click in there, we should just jump straight to our downloads, save and connect, and that's it, we're in. So what you're seeing here, let me just highlight all this. So this is actually all this here is coming off the Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi, I've got this folder here. So let's just double check what I'm saying there. So there it is, downloads there. This is in the remote desktop, and this is in my local computer here. Okay, and then so let's go back down to here, the network, and there's our blah blah folder there. So if I double click that, we should jump straight to our download folder of the Raspberry Pi. Boom. And yeah, we can copy data back and forth as if it's a networked computer. So let's just do a quick test. I'm going to do a right click copy, come over here and paste one item. Okay, next up on our checklist is connecting to our remote desktop through a secure tunnel. Now I've got another VNC client installed on my Linux box here, and it's called KRDC, and here it is here. I'll just bring up the about box for you to take a look at. So there it is, KRDC KDE remote desktop client. So instead of Tiger VNC or whatever other client you might have, if you run this, we can actually punch in 192.168.1.90, enter our IP address for the Raspberry Pi, colon, and our port 5910 in my case, click enter, and these are our tunnel settings. So I'm saying here, connect via secure shell tunnel. I've got this box checked here, tunnel via loopback address, port 22, and the Raspberry Pi username is there. I'm telling it to remember my password. Since I've already connected up previously, it's already remembered my password, and basically I can click OK and connect. And because it's a secure shell, it will take a little longer to connect up than if it were not a secure shell connection. There you go, so we're in. Now one thing to note here, for security reasons, if you're going to go with this route, and I recommend that you do, then I would go back to your startup scripts, edit your text file and remove this local host switch. Take off the no also and save it. Do that to all of your startup scripts. So what we've done here is we've told our VNC server to not accept remote connections, but it will connect local connections, and that's essentially what's happening here. Is when we use our KRDC app, it's connecting to a secure shell, and it's that shell that's making the connection. Yes, so localhost there is gone. I've saved it, and so what I can do is disconnect from there, go back to our PuTTY connection here. I'm just going to do a quick list on that, just see where I'm at. Okay, I'm going to kill that VNC server, kill switch, and :10. That'll kill that, and I'm going to restart it using our startup script. Oops, it is a script, so /startup standalone server for sam.sh. So we're going to restart that with our new change without the localhost no. Okay, now you'll find if we try and use Tiger VNC, it's just not going to work anymore. So connect, there you go, connection refused. However, if we use this client, KRDC, and we're going to connect through a secure tunnel, our settings are already there, push enter, and click OK, and there you go. So that's a secure connection made, and that's working like a charm. So I would recommend this method since it is a secure connection. So one last thing that I have on my checklist is to mention port forwarding. So thus far what you've seen me do is connect to a Raspberry Pi on my local network. Now if I were to pull out that Raspberry Pi and take it to a friend's house across town and plug it in over there, I'm not going to be able to access that without making changes on the router at the other end. And the key word here is port forwarding. Unfortunately, this is not the video for port forwarding and routers and whatnot. I may do that in another video. So there's another VNC server out there available called Ultra VNC. Now if I remember correctly, Ultra VNC is primarily a Windows application. That system, I believe, has a separate app called the Repeater, and the purpose of the Repeater is if the client can see the repeater and the server can see the repeater, then the client should be able to connect to the server without any fussing around with port forwarding, etc. Now this is something that I would be quite keen to look at. However, again, this is not the video for that, and if I do that, I'll put an end card at the end of this video for people to follow along with, or you can just get out there and hunt it down yourself and investigate that, because that would be just the icing on the cake, I think.